I'm here to serve you and your needs and meet you where you are. So, I certainly have the curriculum that we're going to go over today, but I want you to pop in and put it in the lane that you're in and the mindset that you're in so that we just maximize our time. I'm just here to help you market and sell your listings. That's what we're going to do today. So without much, more of that, let's get into it. So basically, the one thing that I always encourage myself and my team members to consistently stay with from the beginning of that listing through the closing is that your goal has never changed for your seller. It's to represent them to the fullest. And a primary piece of that is to protect their asset, which is their home. It's as very basic as that. My goal for you, seller, is to sell your house for the highest that I can possibly do it in the most efficient amount of time. That's it. And if you remember that mantra as you're preparing to list it and everything that goes along with that, to pricing it, to price adjusting it as it goes through the listing process, to negotiating repairs, to even getting through those last bits of getting to the closing table, because it's a marathon that whole way through. I say, hey, listen, our goal has never changed. I told you in the beginning that we want to protect your asset. We want to protect your best interest. And through that, that's your financial investment. That's your interest in this property. And I'm going to hold that. I always have, and that will never change no matter what we deal with as we move through this process. So to remember that mantra and keep that in their head, one of the biggest challenges that I feel like I face when things get a little tough with sellers is I always am on the side of the seller, but always keeping it that way in the eyes of the seller. We're always on team seller. It never changes from the beginning because our goal never changes. But as you are kind of sorting through all that important conversation to prepare their listing and market and sell it, you always want to position yourself so that it doesn't ever feel like we're against the seller in any way as well. So that's kind of an interesting little nugget to think about. It's all about keeping the perspective strong and healthy and positive and win-win oriented and solution driven all the time. So with that, I'm going to pull my notes up here. Our goals today are kind of three main components. And that is first to stage the property. And we're going to talk about exactly what that means because it is multifaceted and can have lots of different choices associated with it. We're going to talk about marketing that listing. And then we're also going to talk about the importance of the hows and the whys to optimally communicate with your sellers as you move through the process. So are you all still able to see my face?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just one moment. All right, sorry about that. My kids love the TV a little too loud and we're not going to stand for that today.
So does mine. I'm always going, turn that FIFA game down. And he's 18. I get it. It's okay.
So when we talk about staging the property, this is all about getting the house ready so that it ultimately shows it in the best light to the masses. We want that property as attractive as it can be. We want it to shine like a penny. So when I use the semantics of let's talk about staging, everyone automatically thinks, oh, I'm going to clear my furniture out and you're going to bring in some stager with all this, fancy stuff and it's going to cost me $8 million and it's a headache. And no, that's not what I mean. What I mean is that we're going to prepare your home to show off how beautiful it is, but just as importantly, how functional it is. Staging your property helps your buyers mentally move in. We have to create a marketing situation such that they're super excited to schedule the showing. There's urgency just from the MLS listing. And when you get their feet in the door, they can see themselves living there. Yes, we all like the shiny granite countertops, but more importantly, we can see how the space was meant to be when the builder built it, or optimally, show it off if there are challenging things about the bones of the house that you can't change. when you merchandise the home, and I use that term a lot, we're going to merchandise your home. We're going to kind of hotel it a little bit. I found myself getting away from the term depersonalized, because in my opinion, I think that for most people, selling a home is a highly personal, vulnerable thing that you should take care of. And even though on the surface, we all know that taking down all the pictures of your dog and every family member is important for people to see themselves, it can feel a little jarring maybe to your seller, perhaps. Words are so powerful. We do know that. So I've learned to say things like, let's neutralize the house best we can, similar to when you walk into a hotel room. If you think about it, if you've been in a nice hotel room before, when you walk in, you feel comfortable. You feel like your items have a place. You feel like you can live in the space. You feel clean. You feel safe. All of these things, the hotel industry has done a very good job of creating a space that people can feel really comfortable in if they've done a good job. So I kind of liken it to that. And I say, well, when you walk into the hotel room, you don't see a ton of decor, on the countertops. The bathroom counters are empty. It allows you to move your space and it works. So that's the best way that we're going to do it. So what my team offers, and I would encourage you to at least, no matter where you are in your career, kind of open up the conversation with various stagers around town. There are several good stagers, and use them as a piece of leverage to your business. Most will come in and do a 2-hour consultation. That's a complimentary piece that our team does offer. We cover the staging consultation. And in that staging consultation, her name's Laura. Laura will walk through room by room and make notes about, very, very, very detailed notes about what counters to clear off, what light bulbs to change out, what light bulbs to match, suggestions for decluttering, maybe taking some curtains down, maybe taking out an oversized piece of furniture so that it just flows better. She'll do detailed lists of suggested items. And I call those the kind of the elbow grease equity items. And I warn my folks, I say, Laura's going to come in and she's going to give you a big to-do list. It will be your choice as to whether or not you want to act upon that. But I would strongly, strongly heed her recommendations, because that list is not going to require any purchase or anything other than some good hard work. And, if you've got to call in a friend or family member to assist you, it will maximize the value of your property. You will make more money and sell faster when you are staged in that way. Now, also know Laura's going to come in with a tiered offering. Our team covers that consultation that's so important to work with what you have. And then she'll also, if necessary or if recommended, she can suggest a wall if it's recommended to be painted. If you are the client that would benefit from an entire stage, she offers that as well. Sellers, you have no requirement to participate in it. I want it to be comfortable for you. I just want to show you your options. But what I do know is that the cleaner, optimally merchandised home will sell higher and faster. Which brings me to a big point. You might want to write this piece down. Our job, the day that I realized that I don't have to make decisions for people and that I shouldn't be making decisions for people, took the weight of the world off my shoulders. Most of us are people pleasers. We want to do a fantastic job for our clients. We want to be the best. But the way we can be the best is present them with options. And you say, seller, here's your option 1 for staging. This is likely to happen if you go with this. Here's your option 2 for staging. Here's the cost that goes with it. Here's what I predict will happen with this selection. And here's option 3. And that way you've just simply stated out of your expertise what their choices are, and now they can choose. So it just makes it a whole lot better when people say, well, what should I do? I mean, obviously I want them to do, obviously I want them to do the most. I want them to make the choice that's best for them. So I say, these are all great options. Here's why these are great. And here's the challenges that each one could have. So apply that to the staging conversation as well.
Can you tell me approximately how much is it to, to have Laura come in to do the consult that you usually pay?
Yeah, I think we pay about $200.
Okay.
And out of that, her name's Laura Philpott. She's with Philpott Creative. She's fantastic. But like I said, there's a lot of other really great stagers around town too. I just have a really great working relationship with her.
Mm-hmm.
With that $200, she'll furnish my clients with that very detailed list, so they don't have to, take notes with smoke coming off their paper and be overwhelmed. She'll format into a nice list. It'll take her a couple of days to turn it around, but she'll present that with pricing and all their different options. And 99 times, well, I would say 9 times out of 10, most people only need that level of staging. Most people just need to clean it up, declutter, and, show good light, like I say, light bulbs matching, not, light bulbs not being out, and let the light pour in. Because when buyers walk into a house that is phenomenally clean, this is just my experience, they have more confidence in that purchase, because a clean, well-maintained house that appears to be taken care of gives them more confidence many times than that really cute sofa that is cutting edge. Really, I've seen it time and time and time again. I've been that buyer who bought the older house, and I fell in love with it, surprisingly, because I just felt like it was so taken care of. There were some quite dated pieces, or, the bathrooms were horrible, but they were so clean, and that really just gave me a ton of confidence. It's amazing how we feel when we walk into a property that feels like it's been cared for. And I convey that to my clients too.
That's so funny. I was just showing a house to somebody yesterday. We called it Nana's house, and then another house. And that's exactly what the person was. She kept going back to Nana's house. It's so well kept, da, 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 da. And that's the truth.
Yeah.
I had a question for, it'll come back to me and I'll ask you.
Yeah. And when you unmute, your box lights up. So it's a visual cue. Well, I may or may not see it. Feel free to interrupt me though. I wouldn't mind at all. Trust me. Because I am toggling where I don't see your faces all the time. Okay.
I know what it is. With the $200, do the clients have to be there, or are they there when they walk through with Laura, or?
Yes. I encourage them to be there so that they can hear Laura. I love that they're there, and I think it's necessary, because Laura is also highly skilled in the dialogue, because it's very sensitive. Her job is to deliver that information in a very proactive way, and she's just good at it. She makes people feel good about it. She doesn't offend people. She is very good about ensuring them that it's their choice, and she's just here to offer professional suggestions. I think it's highly professional when the stager has the conversation, because it lets the stager be the stager, and it lets me be the realtor. And those do have, I think there are separate lanes for those in some cases, especially some of the tough ones.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. When we talk about staging, again, my opinion, because if you haven't come across it, you will, a house is vacant, and your sellers tend to say, well, I think I want to keep it vacant. That way they can visualize themselves in it. And I appreciate that someone would say that. What I've learned over the years is that buyers tend to have trouble visualizing. They have trouble with the vision of it. I think we can appreciate the HGTV, but sometimes it's just hard for us to see in our own heads. We're all wired a little differently. I would prefer not to list a vacant house if I don't have to. And here's my kind of objection handler with that. That's when I do explore, Laura, for bringing in a full stage to stage the main living areas, meaning the living room, the dining room, the kitchen, the master bedroom. Lightly staging bathrooms is like very inexpensive. It's very easy to add those. And then any other space that needs to show functionality. For example, a flat patio out back is great, but man, does it make a difference when you put two really comfy wicker chairs with, you know, a table in the middle and a candle. It just softens the space and invites your buyers to say, wow, this is a really nice outdoor space that we can enjoy this yard. This looks so comfortable versus a sterile 10 by 10 concrete pad. And usually, I mean, the biggest stage that I've staged a vacant house that I've sold, and that was almost $5,000, which is sticker shock for a seller up front. I don't care who your seller is. That's a lot of money. Most stagers only require half of it up front, and then they will allow the balance at closing, which is great. But I do say, I would rather seller you invest $4,000 or $5,000 for a complete stage versus a $5,000 price reduction that has to happen after don't use words like has, that would be recommended, you know, if we're 2 weeks on market and we haven't sold, and then we're playing catch up. You know, if we're doing a cost risk analysis here, would it be better if we could go ahead and get that staging in, increase our chances of selling, and increases our both faster and higher? And most of the time when people kind of let that marinate and sit in, and if they have the ability to do that, it's usually the best choice for your clients. It will photograph better. No question. I don't have experience with the virtual staging, but I know that people are doing it. So I can't answer a lot of questions about pricing. We have a marketing specialist on our team, Brittany Later, that did look into it for one of our listings at one point, but I think we ended up selling it and it became a moot point. But look into that as well. Perhaps if people, for whatever reason, aren't able or wanting to put someone else's furniture in their house. Any questions about that staging piece? Okay.
Nope, I think I've got it.
I've made a bunch of notes. I want to make sure I say everything I want to say. All right.
I have a question. When
Yes.
you put, this is just kind of, when you do stage and if you put furniture or whatever out back, you know, and it's a vacant house, do you leave that there or do you put it away? I mean,
I think that has to be case by case, because that's a very good question. And I would have a candid conversation with the stager about it. I've done that. No one was living at that house at the time. It was close. That property specifically was close to my own home. So if I knew that a really nasty storm was coming in, I would bring in the white cushions if I could, but I wouldn't be able to do that on a listing 30 minutes away from my house all the time. So I think the conversation would be, stager, here's what I'm willing to do. Here's what I can or cannot do. Are you okay with this? And I think it's the stager's call, because it's their stuff.
okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I like to care about stuff, but I can't be liable for something that I don't have total control over. That's a tricky spot. But yeah, do your best on that for sure. The last thing when you're talking to your clients about staging is, when you stage that house properly, it's going to photograph a million times better, and strong, great photos create more showings, creates the higher opportunity for the offer, because selling a house is often a game of numbers and a game of statistics. The more people that I can get in your door, seller, the probability automatically rises that you're going to get a great offer. And man, if I can get 2 great offers, I can get a multiple offer kind of auction situation, which betters your bottom line. So my job is to get as many people through the door as I can for you. So we do that by saying, this is also a really great line that hits home with people. Seller, your first showing is online. Once they are in the house, they have already made a lot of decisions about it. They know if they like it or not. We want to create a situation such that their actual physical showing is a confirmation of everything that they wanted this house to be. That's the urgency that we want to drive when we're building out your photos, and you've done all the hard work for the staging and the cleaning and the decluttering, and we've got the professional photographer in. That's where it needs to be. That's the level of urgency. We've got to take advantage of those first 10 days on market. That's where the most energy is. That's where your highest opportunity is to get a great offer. This is the stat too. If you have not heard it already, this is so important. And I promise you, my team does live by this. We live up to the standard that we create for our sellers. At the listing presentation, we say, we're going to do everything we can to assist you so that we get your property in the best position that it can be to merchandise it and show it off. Okay, that is where all the hard work comes in, and then it's listed. And then the second part of my job starts by watching your listing and making sure that we are responding to what the buyers are telling us and what the market is telling us. So what that means for you is I'm going to call you after 10 days. Well, 10 days in this tight market, 14 days in a less tight market. You can decide based on the market. But for me right now, it's 10 days. If we aren't selling a house in 10 days, we need to make adjustments. There's no question in this market right now. At 10 days, we're gonna have a touch base. And if you have had 10 showings, but no offers, it means that you have marketed very well. You've created a lot of urgency to drive a bunch of showings, yet they haven't made their decision to write an offer. They haven't been compelled to make an offer. So seller, that's when I would suggest a moderate price adjustment to bring in that higher offer. 10 days, 10 showings, no offers. We're doing a lot of great things right, little tweak. Now seller, if we've gone 10 days, in particular, this low inventory market, and we haven't gotten 10 showings yet, we need to go back and make some adjustment. I will recommend going back and making some adjustments. Do we need to make an adjustment in the staging realm? Do we need to make an adjustment in the pricing realm? Do we need to make an adjustment in both? And again, here's where those choices come out. Seller, you can expect that I'm going to call you in 10 days. We're going to have a conversation about this, and I'm going to lay out your choices, and then you can make the choice that makes best sense for you. Because I will never force my clients to make choices. It's their home, it's their asset. I've agreed to take on the listing. My job is to give them the right information so that they're informed to make the best choice for themselves. So remember that when you're going back and setting those expectations for your sellers. So the big objections that you're going to get when you're having the conversations about staging, making those repair items, or in your packet, I don't know if you guys have your notes in front of you. I happen to be on page 15, but it says, I don't see why this is so important. Well, that's a fair concern, but what is important is that we secure as much, that we protect your bottom line as much as we can. We secure top dollar. And would you agree that you would sell for more money and for a higher and faster if your home was staged and in mint condition versus not? An obvious answer is yes to that. The second question that becomes a big objection is, gosh, do we really have to make this repair? And my answer for that every single time is what we just talked about. Sellers, when a buyer walks into a home and they feel that it's been cared for and that there's not deferred maintenance, they're going to have more confidence in the property to make the offer on yours versus the neighbor who did appear to, paint the trim and tighten the loose plumbing and, straighten the door. Those are little things that mean the world to the buyer. They're just very important. And then the last and my favorite one, can we just sell the house as is? Which I appreciate that question. Selling your house is painful. Going through the repair phase is painful. It's vulnerable. It's full of unknowns. I mean, the whole essence of listing your house is taking someone into a very vulnerable position and say, hey, right now we're totally operating in uncertainty. And how much do we love uncertainty? Not much. So the problem when people say, can I sell as is? I say, listen, some people do sell as is, and it's the right thing to do for that person. The problem with selling as is, the concern that I have for you and your equity is this. Independent of the true condition of your home, the public will perceive that something is wrong. Maybe you're covering something up. Even if you're priced below, because they'll throw everything at me. Well, why don't we go in 10,000 under, market value? And I'll say, you have the right to do that. And it could work out. And I would market it to the fullest as to why you've listed it here and why it's as is, and we'll drive urgency that way. However, if at all possible, when your sellers agree to not sell as is, I think it's usually works in their favor to attract more buyers with confidence. And then I say, is your concern for selling as, I want to know, why are you concerned with selling as is? Are you just worried about the repairs? Are you worried about that expense? Because the objection handler for that is, wait, you're going to receive a repair request, and you have control in that situation. You're never forced into a decision that you can't or don't want to make, because in that phase, you're fully protected to come to terms with your buyer. And if you can't, then there is a place that's appropriate that the contract can be voided. But you will never be in a situation that you're making a decision that you're not comfortable with. You have to sign affirmative to everything as you move through the repair phase. Does that make you feel a little more comfortable, seller? And usually it does, because nobody wants to lose control. That's the root of a lot of concerns for people on any level of selling their house, is getting into Pandora's box and they don't have control. Any more questions about the as is objective? All right.
No, I like that.
Good.
I like that. That's great.
Good. All righty. So I would encourage you all, as you're building out, or if you're on the team or building out your own marketing plan, and there's a lot of reasons to have a plan, but the biggest reasons are it keeps you organized, but it gives you, your marketing plan becomes your listing presentation, which I've got our listing, I call it our listing magazine. It's a listing presentation. That's Laura, by the way. Let's see. There she is. That's Miss Laura Philpott, our stager. But the beauty of having that 14-point marketing plan or 99-point marketing plan or whatever it is that you're going to take your seller through that in your listing presentation, because what you're really saying is, seller, here's my standard and here's what you get to hold me accountable for, which is great. Everybody wants that. And as we do it, that 14-point marketing plan, 99-point marketing plan, whatever it is what you then use as you continue to follow up with your client as they go through the process. Once a week, you should be checking in with your sellers. I'm really going to get into seller communication a little bit later. But each week, I like to get ahead of my clients before they say, hey, my house hasn't sold. What are you doing? I don't like that reactive feeling, because that automatically insinuates that I'm, maybe failing at what I told them I was going to do. Well, they haven't sold yet and they want to sell and we haven't achieved that goal. Great. But here's what I told you I would do. And here's what I'm doing. So then you use that multi-point marketing plan to say, this is going on. This is going on. Here's our feedback for this. I think this is working. Here's how I recommend an adjustment. Because at the end of the day, just remember, they want to sell. Having a let's paint the wall conversation or a let's improve your price conversation is really not the end of the world for them. Like, you take that out of your head, because their goal is to sell. Most sellers who decide to sell their house are ready. It's time to move on. They want you, they hired you as a professional to say, with love and professionalism, this is what it's going to take. Would you like to do it? It's my recommendation. Sure, let's do it. Again, present it as a choice, not that we're dragging them. We're just leading them and giving the right information to make an informed decision. So with that marketing plan, number one, and I'm on page 16 of the Sell Your Listings, you're going to price it competitively to the market and the trends. And you know what's so great about today's market? So we have no inventory. The inventory is so low that it creates a platform for sellers to be able to have a high probability of securing top of the market. We're afraid we're going to have an appraisal problem price, literally, as long as they bring that property up to condition. Sellers are grossly misled if we make them think just because the inventory is low, they can still just slap it up there with crappy photos and an unclean bathroom and it's still going to sell. It might, but we don't ever get to walk away from the importance of merchandising it. Merchandising is going to drive it. So we get to find out what the top of the market value is, and we get to start there with a lot of confidence. Never would we ever under any circumstance recommend pricing outside of a market, not even to test it for $5,000. We wouldn't do that. and this is not a class on pricing, but the second you overprice a home, you're going to run into trouble of increased days on market, lower offers, and maybe an appraisal problem. Let it play out and get your seller to fully understand that even in these super, super tight markets where we're getting multiple offers, it is still wildly important to cap that price at the top of the market. And if it needs to go above market, well, guess what? The multiple offer situation will handle that. And then you can make informed decisions working backwards on the other terms brought to the table based on that in the best interest of your sellers. Because we're also not here to create appraisal issues, because that becomes a headache at a whole whopping 2 weeks before closing, and that's never fun for people. So have those conversations. So pricing correctly is paramount, and you're going to do that. You'll price it correctly, and then once you have it listed, you'll make adjustments in the best interest of your client based on what the market's telling us. So we've already talked about number 2, advising those sellers how to attract the buyers. The whole essence of staging and preparing your property and photographing it is to just be the magnet for buyers to be super excited to make it their own. You'll definitely place the sign in the front yard. That goes without saying, of course, within 24 hours of having it live on the MLS. It's really important that you talk to your seller about that. What we've talked about so far, making it beautiful and getting it to the MLS, pricing it correct, is only the start of my job as a realtor for you. That's just the start of it. We've talked about, what we're going to do to adjust to the market, but the other huge piece is everything that I do in between for you. And that includes being responsive when people call me, being responsive when people come into my website or inquire on different online platforms. Having a website that generates leads off your listing is massively important for your business and for your seller. And communicate that as such. At Keller Williams, we have that at an entry level in a very high level for entry level way. That's one of the beauties of Keller Williams technology, is that they are building out a platform for you that has a back end that can drive lead sources to create conversations around the listing and to communicate with people with interest. And that is huge. Sellers don't understand that. A seller's mind stops with essentially doing what it takes to get stuck up on Zillow. No offense to them, they're not in this business. They don't understand that a huge piece of it is then converting the people that have raised their hand. And that is a very definitive skill set. And it also takes someone who's willing to do it, because there's a lot of agents out there. Never be disparaging specifically to other agents, in a listing presentation. It just isn't becoming, obviously. But it is important that you establish the difference between your work ethic and what might also be someone else's, is that we're not going to do the 3 Ps. What is it? What are the 3 Ps? I forget it. Put a sign in the yard, put it on the MLS, and pray that someone will buy it. There's so much work. Why would you stop at just putting it on the MLS? So you got to be proactive in bringing your people in. Okay, I know right now in today's market, it feels a little bit like people are clamoring, and it might be a little bit more that way right now, but it's not like that forever, and it will not stay where we are right now. It just won't. So you always need to be an agent that has the skill set to communicate with the inbound leads, to generate the inbound leads, and figure out ways to proactively sell that property. So the other pieces of this are, you're gonna explain to your client that your website is super robust and that it syndicates to obviously the realtor.com and the Zillow and places where people are looking, but it is across every other agent website and all the nooks and crannies of the internet, because it is all about casting the biggest net. We've made you look beautiful. Your photos look great. We've got a link. Now, this is nothing unless I get it in front of a whole bunch of people across as many mediums as I possibly can. On the whole, it's technology. We know that. People shop for homes online. The statistic is now, I think, more than 92 or 93% of people find their home online. We understand that. All right. We have branded apps that we send out to people and send out to potential clients about your listing. That's huge. Not everybody has that, especially in such a nice app and functionality as even the Keller Williams app right now. Number 8 is to create a flyer and comment cards for properties. We have, interestingly, I can't even, it's just odd. It's odd what kind of turn this just 2020 has been. We sat down with our team, it was probably January, February, right before COVID. And, you know, the inventory was starting to go up. Everything was going the way we wanted it to go. But we were also seeing that, you know, days on market were like, oh, I don't know, 30 days, which, believe it or, you know, it felt so slow that actually is evidence of a normalizing market, and that's okay. But you're always dealing with a population who's about a year or two in the lag of what normal is for real estate. So we were in this position. We were like, we're going to have to up our listing game. They're not selling us fast. We're working a lot harder to communicate with the seller to get someone to buy it. So what are some things we do? So we went through and figured out how we can kind of, you know, spruce things up a little bit. And one thing that we did is that we did choose to invest in beautiful, glossy flyers for the inside of the property. And those are an expense. I would say we spend about $80 on about 30 of those to put into the house for people to pick up. An old version of me would have been kind of against that. I'm very, very efficient in finances, and I don't spend it unless I know that it's going to get a big rate of return. But the piece that I saw even bigger on something like a beautiful glossy flyer that sits in a house is that it spoke volumes to my seller. It was another way to show professionalism, to lean in and do the extra thing, because it's obviously important. Do I think it's going to sell it to the buyer that walks in the property? Honestly, not necessarily. I don't, that's not exactly why we use that expense, but it does plant the seed to the seller that says, gosh, they are working really hard. They are pulling out all the stops. They're going to remember you for it. And then hopefully it becomes a referral. So as you go through all the important ways to sell the listing, you can never lose sight of the fact that your listing in and of itself is selling you and your business as well. Everything that you do is a platform for your professional brand and you. Always, always remember that. Selling the house is that goal, but you have to use that opportunity to build your business and show off your professionalism and your ethic and your ability to do a really great job and be a really stellar agent so that you can keep growing your business. Would you agree with that? Yeah.
Yes. So where do you usually get your like glossy? Where do you tend to buy them?
Yes. And I'm so disappointed I don't have one right now. I wanted to show you. They're all at the office. We get them, Brittany designs them in, I think it's called InDesign. Have you heard of InDesign? It's beautiful. I mean, literally it's a template that she spent the better part of a day probably just building out the template. We have a template that's specific to bigger listings that have like a two-side, almost like a bifold. It's really pretty. It's very nice because it's capable of housing a lot of photos, special features of the house, the write-up of the house, our branding on it. And then we have a template that's single page and double-sided for smaller listings that just don't have the same, number of features to sell, just a little maybe more basic of a property, but we still give them that piece. I would be happy to give you more information on that if you need, but she does that in InDesign. And she also works really hard to find a company that can ship them overnight. Mm-hmm. So we can design them on every day, maybe like Friday or Saturday, and have them shipped the next day, which helps too in the timing of things. So, okay. Yeah. Also, super duper important is a lot of agents will do a just listed campaign, and I've definitely done that before, and I think that it works. You have to decide at the beginning of your year, your business, or whatever it is, where your investment dollars are going to be in your marketing, obviously, and be really consistent with that. And then whatever you decide on, sell it to your clients and commit to it, and they can see that you do it. Circle prospecting is super powerful. It really, really is. It's powerful to sell your listing, but it's powerful to grow your business ultimately and be in front of other people. And when we say circle prospect, it originated from kind of the grid thought of, a house is right here on this block, and I'm going to go, 10 10 houses that way, 10 houses that way, 10 houses that way, and 10 houses that way. Well, most of us don't live on a grid, especially, you know, I live out in Oldham County and there's no grid out here, but you know, it's more of a radius search or a neighborhood specific. So our circle prospecting became specific to the neighborhood. Hey neighbors, I just listed this house. Who do you know that wants to be in the neighborhood? I think that's huge. Most people who are there because they love it and they would love to say hey to their friend. And if there ever were there a time, if ever there was a time in this market to do that, because Facebook proves us time and time again. My sister's moving in town, she can't find anything. My best friend's moving in town, she wants to be here, she can't find anything. There are so many little advocates out there because shopping for houses is fun. It's an exciting time and people love to help people do it. So that's a great way to get in front of people. You can mail it. And if mailing it isn't something that you want to budget or you don't, or you can't budget, that's totally fine too. Do a nice flyer on your printer and just paper box them. We've certainly had our share of times with, it works best if you have someone in the driver's seat and you're in the passenger seat and you're just shoving them in. It's so much easier to do it that way. And it's very effective and people will see that. And the consistency over time will start to build. Our MLS, if you are not aware, has what's called a reverse prospecting function. Have you guys heard of the reverse prospecting function on the MLS?
No.
Okay. Let me walk you through it real quick. This is actually.
I saw it, but I don't understand it.
Okay, well, let me show you. Let me pull up Flex and I'll share my screen here. Give me just a second. Okay, come on, internet. Let me see if this will share real quick. Okay, can you guys see Flex? Okay, so I'm on Flex. This is our team profile. And if you go up here in the top toolbar, go to contact, no, I'm sorry, go to the menu homepage. And then down here in contacts, you see my cursor moving here? If you slide down to reverse prospecting. Now reverse prospecting means I'm going to talk to realtors who have people set up on searches that match my listings. So I clicked on reverse prospecting. Here's our listings right now. And for example, I just reverse prospected for Laurel Lane. 6124 Laurel Lane is in Glen Oaks. And I want to put an email into the inbox of realtors who are shopping for a 4-bedroom home in Glen Oaks of this price point, you know, anything that matches it remotely. So I'm going to click the box here. Hold on. There should be a space. Hang on just one second. Oh, here it is. Sorry, my little, your all spaces were hiding it. So basically I just clicked the listing that I want to reverse prospect and I say run reverse prospecting. And what will happen here is they will show me, interestingly, there's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 agents, which is super low. Usually there's like lists and lists of agents. I don't know why this is so short, by the way, but it is. You'll click on all the agents that you want to reverse prospect. Sometimes the list is so robust that it will only let you email 50 agents at a time, whatever it prompts you to. So I'm clicking these agents, select email. So now I'm going to go to a canned template. Do you see the template right here? Okay. So I always change it. You know, you can change the subject to, looks like you have a buyer for my listing, or something that's a little more engaging than just the address. But build it out. This says the reverse prospecting function in Flex indicates the following listing may meet the needs of one of your contacts listed below. Please contact me if you like your information. I delete that too. I usually say, it looks like you might have a buyer that's looking for that Oldham County Glen Oaks home. Remember, this has a first floor master and the finished basement. The yard is really nice too. Make sure they see it. Let me know if you have any questions. I make it a little more personable, and that just goes right to these agents here. I like to use that tool, and it's also a great, you know, when we did it, we told the sellers, hey, and we reverse prospected you because you had an open house this Sunday, and we did the price reduction. So we made sure those agents knew exactly that that was happening, because agents get busy too. Does that answer that a little bit more?
Yeah, okay. Now I know what it means.
Yeah, no problem. Okay. Let me go back to my listings. So I like those as well. We're getting back into open houses, and I'm super duper excited about that. I'm a huge open house fan, like a huge open house fan for so many reasons. I've taught an open house class on its own. It deserves its own class, but there's so much more than just showing up with balloons on a Sunday. And I like to explain this to my clients too, that when an open house is done properly, virtual open house or in-person open house, like I don't think there's any excuse right now, because it just gives us a reason to market your property. There's 1,000,001 different reasons to do open houses. I like to do them right at the front because we've got all this energy. I love to do open houses to bring energy back. I love to do open houses once we get a price improvement so that we can take advantage of the energy of the price improvement. An open house always, seller, gives us a reason to market with a new purpose and get back in front of people. Open houses also refreshes, it'll based on what syndicate site you're on, it'll group them into, like, you know, some Zillow searches will give updates on that. It's just a really, really great way to generate conversation about the house. Our team is huge on social media. I think most realtors are these days. It gives me a great reason to have a purposeful post. Come see us this Sunday from 2 to 4, and all, you know, all your photos and that. With the open houses, it goes without saying, you guys always say, come visit us. Don't ever say, I am having my open house. I don't ever insinuate that I'm alone. And I also just think, I'm going to jump on a soapbox for a minute, because I love people, and I love you guys, and I love Keller Williams, and I love realtors, and it's breaking my heart to see what's happening. I know y'all probably saw the story last week. I won't hold an open house on a second floor condo with one entrance and exit. And if the house is really big, I bring a partner. Or if you're working on your own and it feels weird, like, it's hard to define the rules. Like, if you're going to hold an open house with another agent, that, you know, whose lead is who, that's tricky. Bring a lender. Lenders love to do open houses with agents. And man, that becomes such a powerful conversation, and it's been a great conversion tool. Lenders love to come out to open houses and talk to buyers. That gives them a stage too. You know, the lenders get to talk about the rates. They get to answer all those loan questions. You get to talk about the house, and now you become this dynamic duo, and it's fantastic, but it's also a safety thing. So just be careful. I'm not going to be scared of open houses. I'm just going to be smarter about them. That's what I'm going to do, because they're so powerful for our sellers. They're so powerful to generate good leads, and they're just so powerful to build your business. They're wonderful. The open houses that we do, this is kind of the standard for our team. We have a Monday team meeting. We're not meeting Tuesday mornings. Sorry. By Tuesday team meeting, we have to define the open house. So we have to know that the sellers approved it. We have to know what agent's going to be in it. And we have to notify our marketing gal. Because since it's defined on Tuesday, signage goes out Wednesday. So you can take advantage of all the drive-by traffic and all the neighbors. They know it's going to be held open. People still see that. Don't discount drive-by traffic. It's not gone. It's not the biggest source of business, but it's definitely there, especially in the open house world. By Wednesday or Thursday at the latest, get your social media post out. Invite people. If you want to create an evite, but definitely get the word out by Thursday at the latest. We actually don't do that purposefully until Wednesday or Thursday, because we do want it a little bit closer to the open house. I think Friday night's too late. People have already made plans. Thursday seems to be kind of a sweet spot for us. We like it. The other thing, I lost my train of thought totally. Oh, you need to, if you've got people down on your database or your pipeline, obviously that goes without saying. invite those people. If you think they have anybody who knows anybody who may, shoot them a quick text, Facebook message, give them a call, but reach out directly and say, hey, this is being held open. I really would love to see you. I'd love to invite you out. That way you get to Friday and Saturday. If your balloons are ordered, you don't have to do anything until Sunday. Pick up those balloons. You want visibility, get as many signs and directionals out as possible, and hold that home open. Do not forget to have a sign-in sheet. I do use the sign-in sheet as a safety piece because it holds them accountable for saying who they are. But I also say, hey, we use this as a courtesy to let the sellers know just who's coming into their home. If you don't mind to fill it out, that'd be fantastic. And most people are not averse to it. I think people kind of expect that at this point. But I'm very, very purposeful in making sure they sign in. And then I make it a challenge to kind of figure out what they're looking for, why they're in this open house, and you go and ask all the qualifying questions that again are for a different class. But in the eyes of your seller, as part of getting their listing sold, open houses are key. And I love it when they allow us to do them. The other reason that I communicate that open houses are important, this is not part of the listing conversation at the listing presentation, but it's in the we've been on market for 30, 60, 90 days and we haven't sold conversation. Open houses are for forced showings. Open houses, if I've got, sometimes the toughest listening, you guys, is that beautiful house. There's nothing wrong with it. It's priced well. It's just a little vanilla. It just maybe lacks a wow factor. But it's a great house. You believe in it. I've had these over and over again, and you just say, I don't know why this one is not selling. Everything is going right in it. Well, you know what? You hold that puppy open Saturday, Sunday, get other agents if you want to invite them in. If you don't have time to do it, force the showings, because it always goes back to the foot traffic. The more people cross that threshold, the higher the probability that you're going to get an offer. So when I'm communicating to my clients, if showings have slowed down, one of the options is, and let's do an open house, because it increases our chances of somebody walking in the door and having another showing. Let's go for it. Very powerful. Going back to that weekly update, that goes into your marketing, your 15-point marketing plan, whatever it is. The last bullet point is always, sellers, I'm going to check in with you on a regular basis. Nobody has ever complained in real estate that their realtor over communicated, like ever once, ever. We've laughed and joked about how much we talk and how much we're going to miss each other not talking 3 times a day. Not really, but nobody has ever said, I'll never use that realtor again because she told me everything. It just doesn't happen, which is great. So I make a promise. I say, we're probably going to talk a whole lot more often than every week, but seller, it's really important that you understand that you're not ever going to be in a position where you don't know what's going on. Because as seller, if you're like me, when things get quiet, I start to assume that bad things are happening, that wrong things are happening. And so I understand that this is new territory for you. And it is my promise to you that I'm always going to keep you updated. You're always going to know what's going on. I'm even going to call you to say, hey, everything's great. There's really not any news right now. The only time, and this is what I tell my teammates, the only time that you should not have any news is if you're literally waiting on like lending to approve something. If we aren't sold yet, I think there should always be news. The news is you haven't had a showing this week. That's not healthy for your listing. And I want to keep the buyers energized about your house. I want to keep people coming in. Let's create an action plan around the fact that we haven't had a showing in the past week and build on that. Or we had 3 showings. Every one of them said they don't like living next to the railroad tracks. I'm not going to say it that way. I have a lot of tact and professionalism. And I say, we're getting the same feedback. You can't change the railroad tracks, but we can change the value in the eyes of the buyer. Let's talk about what a $5,000 price reduction might look like to spawn the interest. And when I get to do that price reduction, it gives me a reason to reach out to everybody that has seen the property to say, hey, we just improved the price. Is your client still interested? And then seller, it gives me the opportunity to help that agent overcome objections that her buyer may or may not be having, because I am totally convinced that there's a buyer for every single property. And sometimes we just have to get over a few extra hills to get everybody to meet in the middle. We just have to learn what they need. And if we can change it, we will. And if we can't, we come to a price that's comfortable, because every house is sellable. We just have to figure out where it is. It's dialogue, it's open conversation. And again, we're caring. The other thing that's super important that I want to really impress upon you is when sellers aren't selling, they're obviously not usually happy about it. They perceive it as something's wrong. I mean, that's totally fair. My house doesn't sell yet. I hired you to sell my house. Why haven't you sold my house? I always keep the conversation with, seller, you've done a really good job because you worked really hard to get it merchandised. Thank you. You have done your part. Seller, you've done a really good job of, I really appreciate you letting me have your house Sunday afternoon for the past 3 weeks. That's how I've removed you from your house. Thank you. You've done a really good job at this. You've done a really good job. I like to remind them that what they're doing is good, because a seller who hasn't sold feels like they've lost control of the situation, and it's frustrating and it's not fun. So I want to remind them what's going well. And then again, go back to, but here's an action plan. What fits best for you as a next step? What's comfortable for you? Because your goal is to sell. My goal is for you to sell. How are we going to get there? And so questions. Let them be the decision makers, and it helps. And then in your accountability, when you follow up the next week, hey, that price reduction was awesome. We got 5 new showings out of it. Here's our feedback. I liked it because, do we want to make any adjustments? You know, again, questions. Here's your choices. Here's what's going well. Here's how we can be helpful. So any questions about like a Friday touch or letting your clients know what's going on?
No, I'm assuming that you kind of like, different people like to be, you know, touched a different way, like texting or phone calls or emails or whatever. Mm-hmm. And then if you have a couple, you know, making sure that they both are on the same page, or that you've kind of gotten in touch with both of them.
Absolutely. And that is a point that's brought up in this whole, this toolkit that Keller Williams provides for this class. That's hugely important. And I have to say, I have to sprinkle in my thought. I have to layer my thought and my experience in on that. It is important that we communicate to people in the way that they prefer. Like, that's totally fair. I don't ever want to fight that. If someone prefers to text, I'll text you. That's totally cool. If someone prefers to pick up the phone, that happens to be my preference a lot. I love to just talk things through, and then I'll do that. So I'll identify that. Yet at the same time, to your point, both decision makers have to be there, because it never fails. In the beginning of the transaction, they'll say, my wife is the decision maker, and I've given her the keys to this whole process, and you guys just keep me updated. I'll say, I really appreciate that, and I totally respect the way you all have worked it out. However, may I please be sure that I include you on really important emails, and will you, be willing to receive those, just because I just want, even if it's your acknowledgement, but I need to make sure that you're in on this, because it never fails. Everything's going great. Everything's awesome. You've been working with the wife the whole time. Everybody's happy. We're getting to closing. One tiny detail comes up that doesn't work in their way. That husband calls me up. It goes down everything that he's been upset about the whole time. And I had no idea. No one told me that they didn't like this or had a problem with that. And this whole time we were just swimming along thinking everything was great. It's interesting. I err on the side of forcing people to be included.
Okay. Because I've got someone who I'm not working with, but had expressed interest, and it's just the husband, and he will not give me wife information. But I know he's married, and it's kind of like, I can't work with you if I can't get wife, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, yeah, I think that's I just think it's a red flag.
Exactly.
For something.
So that's right. So I'm kind of like, no, I can't, I need to have wife's information also to be able to work with both of you.
Yeah, I agree fully. And the other piece that I want to talk about in terms of the mode of communication, you've all agreed on it. And let's say they are people, I've been on a text thread with the Mr. and the Mrs. for most of the correspondence. And it's kind of beautiful. It's all, we've got it all there. That is their way to communicate. However, and this is what I really encourage with my teammates, I say, guys, if you are having to sort through a challenging situation where you're not just exchanging the bare bones of information about the transaction, because the transaction, we'll get to that at some point. I mean, there's always something to figure out that requires more than simple text. I mean, it's just way more complex with that. Please pick up the phone. And if you have people who still say they prefer to text, my text looks like this. Seller, it's important that I have a voice-to-voice conversation with you about this situation. When is the best time for us to connect? Because when we get people on the phone, I can solve tough situations so much easier when I have tonality and inflection. I am human. I convey that I care. It naturally allows them to ask questions that we can work through in real time. I'm not led to be held hostage to how they perceived a text in a way that I didn't mean. And I think that's another conversation, another class even, on the importance of knowing when to be voice to voice with people to work through challenging things. I feel real strong about that. Yes, Amy.
If I could interject there, it's like you said, it's a whole nother class. And I encourage everyone to look into the DISC class. There is a recording of that taught by Catherine Sotelo on that YouTube channel that I mentioned earlier. And, you know, I don't know if Patty or Shelly, if you all took the DISC assessment, we really focus on KPA these days. It's really good to take it just to know what you are, and it will help you recognize how your clients are. So each personality really likes to be communicated with in a certain way. And when I was in the sales side, I used to begin a consultation kind of playfully saying, okay, which one of you is the worrier? So which one of you is the one? And then that way, you know, that's the one that wants more information and more time and more explanation, while their husband or their wife might be a high D that just says, tell me what I need to know. Just tell me what I need to know. So by knowing your communication style, you will recognize it in others. And that can really help with what Alyssa's talking about right now, for sure.
Absolutely. And to that point, I mean, that's so important to really learn about how people communicate and why it's so important that you can mirror and match, because whether or not I like it, I mean, I want to be everybody's friend. I can't be everybody's friend, but man, I get my feelings hurt easy. I'm going to be really honest about that. I'm super sensitive, and I know that about myself, but I will really turn somebody off. I can be bubbly and excited and energized and kind of, you know, I got a little cheerleader in me, and I will overwhelm somebody who is monotone, numbers based, and just wants the facts. Like I can talk your ear off like this all day long, and I cannot do that to everybody. That will overwhelm. And I've had sellers that I can't do the long email to them. Paper trails are important, but he didn't want it in an email. I need to put it in an Excel spreadsheet. He wanted to see the showing, the feedback, the price, and the date, and he wanted it lined up, and I did that for him every week. And he was so happy to get it that way. There's nothing against me. He didn't care less about, you know, it's just the way he needed to digest the information. And we have to respect the fact that our job is to know the information, be the expert, and then convey it efficiently. That's it. So all day long. Yes. All right. So I do think on page 17, there's a really great exercise for kind of cross-checking this skill set and applying it. I know you guys are working in your transactions, but I do think that it's important. Next time you show a house, for example, go through these steps on page 17, because it lets you do a little evaluation that would in turn be a great reflection of the way that you would do it. And here it is right here. First and foremost, what's your idea on the pricing of the house? Run a quick CMA on it. See if it reflects what the rest of the market is doing. Challenge yourself to pull that pricing history up. see what kind of reductions they've done, see how their listing agent has responded to the market and how many days on market it's been. Run a little test on that and be comfortable with being in different neighborhoods and different feel, and to see, you know, how that affects the pricing. Check out their signage. Is it placed in accordance to the restrictions of the HOA? By the time you get to the house, here's a little big deal that I feel strong about. I know I'm detail oriented and I'm a very particular person, but I think that a sign that's tilted and dirty just doesn't look right. I don't think it's great. I strongly suggest you doing a drive-by of that listing. I mean, realistically, once a week, which can be a lot, especially if you're really spread out. Make sure your directionals are standing up. This is mowing season. I mean, the sweet mowers think they're doing a great job by picking it up and mowing, and then they stick it back in the yard like this. Well, it's a reflection of you and your business, and I mean, that matters. Have a cloth and some Windex in your car, and keep those signs looking good. Keep them plumb, straight up. Keep a mallet in your car. If you've got to rehammer it in, always be prepared to do that. And those darn luxury signs, I love a crossbar sign. They're beautiful. But you know what? The wind loves to do weird things with them. And it just is a bad face. No, it's no different than the fact that you wouldn't show up to a listing presentation with a dirty car. It's the face of your business. Watch it, watch it, watch it. I say that with love. So check out their signage. Does it look like they care about what their sign looks like? Take a look through the house. Is the house properly staged? And if not, how would you have done it differently? But more importantly, how would you have conveyed that in an effective way to your client? Kind of take time to practice. Maybe on the way home from the showing, practice in the car, actually saying it out loud. Because until we say it, it's like script practice. It's not going to feel natural. If it doesn't feel natural, it's really hard to sell something we don't believe in. I don't believe in saying your house smells like maybe a pet. That's a mean way to say it. But I can practice ways that's more inviting, that they can receive, by saying, my best one for the pet odor is, hey seller, I'm a dog lover. And I think they're part of our family. Dogs are fantastic. Not everybody has a pet. What I've happened to notice in my experience is that people who may not have pets may have a sensitivity and awareness that there's one in the home. So the best thing to do to neutralize that part of your house is to just get rid of maybe some dog beds for showings. And you know exactly what it is. If it's pick up the dog bed, if it's change the litter, the loving ways to suggest a task that they can do, that's not offensive. I've just said some people are more sensitive to others, so that we can attract all buyers. Let's really neutralize that best that we can. I don't even say neutralize odor. That is the hardest conversation for me, is talking about the way someone's house smells when you walk in. That it would offend me horribly if I thought my house, I mean, it would just hurt. It would crush me. It would crush me. I'm a realtor, and it would crush me if I thought my house didn't smell good. Same thing with the odor conversation comes up if people, are big cooks and they cook with strong foods and all of that. Simple things to say is, take advantage of, if you want to kind of open the windows and keep some air running, it just neutralizes the space. Everybody's a little different, and the more neutral we can be, the better off for attracting all the buyers.
So Alyssa, I have a resource that I learned a little late in the game after I came to Keller Williams. Mm-hmm. If you have a serious smell going on, an agent in our office, Adam Borders, has an ozone machine. And I believe it was like a $75 charge. What he does is he brings it in, and he does have to contain the house. There can't be anything living in it, because it literally sucks the air out, filters it out, and then goes back in. So if you have a really overwhelming smell, and then after you have that sensitive conversation, you can offer that resource to them and reach out to Adam Borders. Mm-hmm.
Which is the question, have any of you all been in a situation that you just felt like you could not answer politely in terms of staging, smell, color of a wall, cleanliness? Y'all run into that?
Yeah, one of the girls on my team, Meredith, she's had a lot of problems with this one listing, and it was a nightmare as far as the dog smell. So something that people, because I held it open for a few times, something that people would notice is, why do you have 55 candles burning in this house? Mm-hmm. And the backyard was full of, what do we call them? Dog.
Landmines.
Yeah, they were landmines, but somebody said it recently, and it was a really cute way of saying it. Lawn statues. I can't remember how that yard statue something. I can't remember. There was poop everywhere on the deck, in the grass, and I'm like, why would you do this? But the house smelled horribly, and so yeah, I mean, that wasn't directly mine, but I went through my friends just extreme discomfort over having to talk to her clients about it. I mean, they had to change the carpet. It was awful. Mm-hmm. So yeah, she was very uncomfortable with that.
Yeah. And that's really, really tough, especially because, you know, it's okay that we all don't have the same standards of cleanliness. That's not that's not a snobby thing to say. I mean, I wish I could relax more on some days. I really do. So like, I honor that. The other thing too, that I can step forward with, and I'm not here, the last thing I want you all to do as agents is just open up your wallets. But we have found that investing the money to bring our cleaner in for a deep clean on the front end sometimes just sells it for us. We have seen that as a cost of doing business before. Now, obviously we try and work through, everything is case by case. We have to take things, there's nothing exclusive that rules apply to every single person. If it's a situation where I think that it would be appropriate and they would be able to do it on their own, I would have that deep clean conversation. I would make it a priority. I would choose my priorities. I would choose my battles in their staging conversation if that's at the top. If I thought this was a situation where it just wasn't able and it just needed to happen, I've paid for our cleaners to come and deep clean a house before. So it just depends on what you want to do, what you're comfortable doing. Again, I don't think you paying for it should always be the first choice, but we've done it if we're like, this isn't going to sell if we don't do this. So, but yeah. All righty. The other thing too, that's just a really good practice, and you do this without even knowing it, obviously, is you know what it looks like when you see photos on the MLS. When you go to the MLS scroll and you're just going down the hot sheet, you can tell right off as a realtor, daggone, they undershot that on the photos. This could be so much better if it just had some good photos. They didn't have to make a single change. And when we talk about photos, to go back to the photo conversation for a moment, and this is what I tell my clients, it's not just about a pretty photo of the room. That's our first checkbox. But the second level of importance with your photos is that your photographer captures how the rooms communicate with one another and how the house flows and where the bedrooms are with relation to the bathroom and where the staircases to the bathroom. Again, I want your buyers to use their first physical showing as the confirmation of everything that they know and love about the house. When you're marketing that house, you provide every single bit of information in every single way that you can, because the more information you can give a buyer, they're going to get excited about it. A buyer would get more excited about seeing windows installed in 2010, which wasn't last year, believe it or not. They would rather see that the windows are 10 years old than not say anything at all, because I have had, some team members be like, that's not even new. Why would you talk about it? Well, because somebody cared enough to replace their windows 10 years ago. It might not be my opening sentence, but I'm going to use it in the marketing somewhere, somehow, which is also super important when you walk into the listing presentation with your listing, that you give them space in your pre-listing packet or what have you that lets them report out what they love about the home. And I say, and this is really important, write this down. I say, I can walk in and see that you have 4 beautiful bedrooms and 2.5 bathrooms. And I can see with my realtor lens, all the kind of didactic level information of your property. I want you to tell me how you feel about this house and why you bought it. Because what you're going to garner from that is your second level, really important level of marketing. You're going to be able to say, you're not going to say this breakfast nook is 12 by 10 feet and will accommodate your 4-seater table. That's kind of dry. No, I want to know that when I'm in the breakfast nook, that the sun comes in while I'm drinking my coffee and I have a beautiful view of the field, and it just is a great way to start my day. That's, I want to feel, and I'm not going to get that when I'm at the listing presentation at 6 o'clock at night on a cloudy, cold winter day. That's not going to happen. So I say, take the time to fill this out. If you need to type up a Word document, do it for me. But I need to know the feel of your house, because someone else is going to feel that. And my job is to convey that when I market it. And I do. We try and tell the story as well. So, any questions about that? We talked about the open houses already. And the one elephant that I do want to address in light of COVID, we all are talking about, focusing about how our businesses are different with regards to COVID, is the door knocking aspect. Everybody's allowed to feel and do what they want. I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm not going to tell you what to think. I hope you always think for yourself, always. However, I do think that we would agree right now that some people would feel really threatened if you came to their front door as a door knock right now. I think that we're still there, and I always want to work in the realms of making people feel comfortable. I don't want to make anybody feel uncomfortable. So, I say to my team members, the conversation for so long was, okay, we don't have open houses. That's a 15% pillar of our business. What are we going to do to replace that? How can we flex and change and move? And so we answered those questions. So we're not going to be getting back to door knocking, but we need to continue to find ways to be in front of people to sell our listings and show value every time. So a lot of people are moving towards really pushing these virtual open houses. I really encourage you to, it doesn't take the place of door knocking because it's not the same thing, but you have to fill it with another way to get in front of people to sell your listing. You just got to be creative and think of new and different ways to do it. And the one thing that people are doing right now, you guys, is sitting on the phone. They're scrolling and they're seeing everything. Whether or not they like it or think they don't like it, they are seeing it. So it's so important that you take advantage of the opportunity to get in front of your people, your sphere, and talk about that house as you're able, especially if you have it on your business page. I believe firmly in the 80-20 rule of 80% personal and 20% business on your personal page, and nothing more than that. But on your business page, do a tour. And when I do a tour, because I also am very, very keyed in to the fact that people don't have an attention span. I don't have an attention span for someone's video on the internet. I pick out the best part of the house. So we did a virtual tour the other day on a house that sits on a little pond out in Oldham County. And the house itself is great, and there's nothing wrong with the kitchen. I did not even show the kitchen. I did a tour of the porch and talked about the lifestyle and the outdoor living and the view. And that was the tour. And so, to be very strategic. And that way it also gives you an opportunity, if the house hasn't sold in a week or two, to come back and do a tour of a different part of the house. And that way it's not like a 5-minute, really slow, awkward, kind of walk through of the property. I mean, I'm not dissing that. I don't mean to sound negative in that way, but I'm just saying, always challenge yourself to find a new way to get in front of people and do it in an interesting way, as different as you can. That's going to kind of be ways to overcome some of these strategies for selling your listings that we just can't do because of COVID. And we have a 5-minute funeral about it, and then we get on with it, right?
When do you usually kind of put that out?
At the risk of the worst answer, it depends. If it's vacant, I take full opportunity to do it as soon as I can. And that goes back, because there's a million different reasons to do virtual tours as well, because you're still marketing that house, you're marketing yourself. I did a virtual tour purposefully on a revolving door listing a couple months ago. I scheduled a showing for myself. I blocked out the space purely because I knew it was a hot property, and I wanted to be able to use that as marketing to then further market that it's a hot property. I used that tour that night to get in front of more people so we get multiple offers. But again, sometimes if we haven't had time or for whatever reason we haven't done in the beginning, that may be something that I go back to the seller at that 10 or 14-day mark and say, hey, we don't have the showings that I prefer, based on the National Association of Realtors statistics, the whole statistic we talked about earlier, another great way to bring showings to people is a virtual tour. May I do a virtual tour of your property tomorrow at 2? You know,
Okay.
it can ebb and flow, I think, in that way as to why. Just always have a good reason.
Yeah, to be able to do it. And like you said, keep them short.
Yes, keep them really short. People can't watch. We get a little bored. We already talked about the communication. I'm just making sure that we're going through everything. All right. I think that we have really hit all the points that I wanted to focus on. What I want to wrap it up with is, again, what I started with. It's all about their experience, and people, especially if you're a bit newer in the business, which you have to really adopt and believe for certain, is that people don't care. I mean, we're here to be educated and do the right thing, but we're not going to wake up and be good realtors in 1 month or 1 year. Like, it just takes time. That doesn't make you a bad realtor. It makes you a great realtor who knows when to ask questions and knows when to seek advice because you care. So again, we can all wake up and care today. I could wake up and care the day before I got licensed and still do a really good job and be smart enough to understand when to ask. People don't care how much you know. They just want to know how much you care. Because if you do, and you keep that communication open, and you strive to follow everything that we've talked about, you're going to be great at listing these properties. You're going to be very successful listing the properties. And you're at Keller Williams Louisville East is also a place that if you are at a roadblock, you call somebody and say, hey, I see that you've listed properties and you've sold a few, and you might have an answer for me. I'm having trouble. Can you help me? What am I missing? How can I help my seller? I'm in a frustrating spot, because there's a solution for like just about everything. We just have to drill down to what the problem is and be creative enough to give enough choices that our seller can make some choices that are going to keep the train moving forward. A lot of listings are selling fast right now, but not every listing is, and that's okay. And we're not going to be in this market where everything's flying. We're always going to have to continually sharpen our blade to have our skill sets really strong to market strong. Do y'all have any questions for me at all?
No, I took lots of notes. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I am very new, but I really appreciate your time, and you've given me a lot of information that I definitely can use when I do get my first listing.
Good, and you will. You will, and it'll be great. And you can call me anytime. When my kids go back to school, I'm in the office, but I don't know. But no, I mean, always. And, if it's Zoom format, I love Zoom because we can, still talk and see. I'm here to help you. Everybody's here to help you. Amy's fantastic. Just let us know.
Oh, Amy already knows. I text her. So.
Good.
I love helping.
Okay. Well, if there's not any other questions, then I'll let you all go about your day.
Thank you, Alyssa. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Alyssa. Bye. Y'all have a good weekend.
Bye. Take care.